Last year, Elder Kevin G. Brown spoke at a BYU devotional, and he said to study Jacob chapter 5 from the perspective of the tree. With that being said, when we get to verse 41, the Lord of the vineyard weeps because the trees were not doing what they were intended to do. And the Lord of the vineyard asks the question, what could I have done more for my vineyard? In verse 47, he repeats the same question, but what could I have done more in my vineyard? And then he says the following, have I slackened mine hand that I have not nourished it? Nay, I have nourished it, and I have digged about it, and I have pruned it, and I have dunged it, and I have stretched forth mine hand almost all the day long. The Lord will never leave us. It's important to remember that when we don't feel close to God, it's not because He's left us alone. Although at times it can feel that way, if we could still see everything He's doing for us behind the scenes, I think our perspective would totally change. But that's why we have faith. The point is that the Lord is always stretching His hands towards us. Then, in the same verse, He asks the question, who is it that has corrupted my vineyard? The servant responds, is it not the loftiness of thy vineyard? Have not the branches thereof overcome the roots which are good? To me, I think that the branches represent the works. Works are good and they're important, but they're not the most important thing. And then the roots, to me, represent our relationship with Jesus Christ, which is the most important thing. I've seen a lot of people leave the church, and when they talk about their time in the church, they say that they're essentially checking boxes. At times, when we keep the commandments of God, it can feel like we're just checking boxes. But it's important to remember that the reason we have commandments is so that we can get closer to God and strengthen our relationship with Him. Keeping the commandments of the Lord will help us to be in line with His will and in tune with His Spirit. Reading the scriptures and praying is important. Going to church and attending the temple is important. Serving in our callings and ministering to families in our wards are important. All of these things are good and important, but we shouldn't be doing these things just to check off a box or to appear that we're worthy. And the truth is that none of us are worthy on our own anyway. The church has put a lot of emphasis over the last few years that we're not just checking boxes. And if you feel like you are checking boxes, and you're just doing things for the sake of doing them, my recommendation is to take a step back, focus on what's most important, which is your relationship with Jesus Christ. And then doing good things will come natural and they'll be instinctual. Remember that God loves you for who you are, as you are, and our motivation to serve Him and His children should be based on His love for us and our love for Him.